Good evening, and welcome to the Evening Report. This is your earlier than midnight update tonight from our studio here in Washington, D.C., make-believe, actually, Dallas, Texas. Okay, now, I've got the news. I wanted to give to you the important news that's in the news tonight, and starting with something which I'm going to go with the Fox headlines. You can just go right there. I'm just reading them, catching up with them as we go down, but these are stories that you don't want to miss. So, for instance, facing recall, Newsom blasts Abbott for rescinding Texas COVID restrictions. You understand that Governor Abbott is about to demask us and unmask Texas, and Texas is jubilant because there's all this pent-up desire. You could see it walking around the malls, and even though the left is doing everything it can with COVID to destroy small businesses, quite unintentionally. I don't think they understand business in the first place because most of them really aren't in business. They're in politics in one form or another. But they're looking for the $15 minimum wage on top of the 30% of businesses struggling because they can't open, and restaurants that can't be functioning at full capacity. But Newsom has, what does he have? He has nearly 1.5 million unhappy customers, and it just makes him so mad because here you got New York, Governor Cuomo's having nothing but problems with this, with what is the scandals coming out, and then so Cuomo and Newsom it's an indication that something's already adjusting at the state level, not yet at the national level. The national level, it's still Mr. Potato Heads making some terrible decisions up there. We rescinded the Iran, we had sanctions on them. We took that away, and that was in order to create a new relationship, which unfortunately they responded, it seems, by attacking us in Iraq. And Trump says, hey, he's trying to get us out of wars, and it's hardly even the first month, and the State Department is already trying to figure out how to get us back into armed conflict. But Newsom, I'm telling you, what's going to happen in California, people? I think you guys are seeing a revival. I talked to Mario Murillo tonight on Flashpoint. I reemerged on the great Flashpoint, bro. I haven't been there since January 18th. And we discussed the prophetic perspective I've got. And it's great. It was a very wholesome and a great broadcast, being reunited with my friends there. Mario is doing something very interesting. He's got like 1,000 pastors meeting him for lunch tomorrow, I think it's Thursday. And this thing is growing because there's revival. His tent meetings have already exceeded his 1,000 limit. He's got 2,000 people in the tent. And I'm telling you, there's a move of God in California, and there's something happening there. And Gavin Newsom better watch out, because I believe that the people in California are fed up with incompetent government leadership that is more interested in activism than they are in representing the best interests of their community. So, on the other news, the White House pulls Tandon's nomination as budget chief after bipartisan opposition. And that makes sense because we're already $30 trillion in debt, and nobody's screaming about this. We should be screaming, because who's going to pay for that? And they're bailing out. The whole COVID relief bill, 1.9, with a trillion here, a trillion there. Before you know, there goes the laundry money. I mean, we're talking trillions of dollars here. And I'm sorry, 30 trillion is nuts-a-fagan. And so now they're up there. Who's going to pay for that? Whoever still has a job after they get done decimating the economy. And it's going to be you paying for it. Taxpayers pay for it. By the way, what's that one? I think I heard one guy say to me today, he said around 90% of this isn't going for COVID relief. It's going trillions and hundreds of billions are going back to Democrats whose lousy management of the states and cities is getting reimbursed by Washington shenanigans, something Trump would never have done. And these Republicans are as guilty as the Democrats of printing and spending money and sending it off to dysfunctional mayors and states and governors who don't know how to manage a business. It's enough, but I don't want to upset you. I want to give you some good news as soon as I find it. The problem with news is, if you notice, they tried a news station once. It was only good news. You know what they found out? It went bankrupt because nobody's really hurrying up to look at good news. Everybody wants to go to bad news. That's just the way it is. But then the problem is, for people like me, we have to give you some good news in the bad news, or you get discouraged. So here's the good news. They're finding out right now. I saw this today. This is interesting. It's a discovery. What did they do? I want you to see this because I'm going to the news site. I'm getting this is real news Archaeologists make a stunning discovery in the ruins of Pompeii. Do you know what the stunning discovery was? They found 2 boxes of Biden ballots in the ruins of Pompeii near Mount Vesuvius, covered in ashes. This is an amazing discovery. Here we have this. This is all the way back from the pre-1st century. The Pompeii, the volcano with Vesuvius, and Biden's ballots were right there in the ashes. It's a shocking discovery that the Democrats were working on this a lot earlier than the Republicans, and nobody could quite figure that out. Let's see the political cartoon of the day. Mr. Potato Head goes gender neutral. This is what they have, and I guess this is the potato. By the way, Mrs. Potato Head has a few things to say. I guess that's, what do we got here? There we go, gender neutral. When this is a commentary, now a lot of you are talking about the Dr. Seuss today. And, and people, I think we sometimes have to be careful not to overreact to these things. But there's 6 Dr. Seuss books. And so they've taken them out because Dr. Seuss was reflecting, 40 years ago or something, the insensitivity of stereotyping. But look, Blazing Saddles does the same thing. And this is you watch old movies and they have a certain characteristic of a Chinaman or a certain character, with the exception of Kung Fu. That was amazing. Kung Fu. Remember Kung Fu when you grew up? David Carradine, who wasn't even Chinese, and he plays a Kung Fu master, and he knew nothing about martial arts. David Carradine actually was a choreographer and a dancer. And it's hilarious because they got, and this to me is an insult. Instead of having someone from China who's a Kung Fu master, what do? They got a Hollywood actor who's a dance instructor, and all of his moves that he did in Kung Fu, they were actually dance moves. And he kind of created his whole look, like, if Ginger Rogers was doing martial arts, it would be like, and it was great. So the Kung Fu series was a stereotype of Chinese people played by a Hollywood dancer. But that's not my point. My point is that Mr. Potato Head is not the end of the cancel culture. We have now Dr. Seuss, but it's 6 books. And it's because the cartoons are somewhat, they were insulting to people in the generalization of 30 or 40 years ago. But this is the problem in cancel culture. It doesn't have any redemption. It doesn't have any flow in history. That's why they want to get rid of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln said something that they didn't like. Well, in the context of 1860s, he was actually well ahead of his time and taking a lot of heat. If you remember, we had a civil war while he was there. But people say, well, he said something. See, the cancel culture is actually the Pharisees' religion in the Old Testament and the New Testament. Remember how Jesus had a problem with the Pharisees? The woke community are the modern-day Pharisees because they have blasphemy laws, they excommunicate you, they shut down your business, they punish you, they want to catch you in the act. It's like the woman caught in adultery, boom, they want to catch you doing something wrong, and they want to expose you and shame you and destroy you, and there's no redemption because that's the nature of a legalistic religion, which is what you got with the fake awakening, is the woke awakening. And we're waiting for the true awakening. But I want you to know is that Dr. Seuss, did you know this? That Dr. Seuss actually he had his own renaissance and his own awakening about stereotypes and prejudices. He was ahead of time. And he wrote, when Hitler was coming to power, he did his cartoon thing called Yertle the Turtle. And it was an anti-fascist cartoon against Adolf Hitler. And so, what we should do is we should go back and say, okay, if something is insensitive, and it's always like, would you, could you in a pinch, and, green eggs and ham. I don't think those were the ones that they were going after, but whatever it was, it'll be like an insulin cartoon representation of another nation. So just do the cartoon over. Do it over. And let the book survive. Don't destroy the whole work. This is the left's religion. And basically it makes hypocrites out of everyone because you have to act like you've never sinned, which is like a Pharisee. I've never sinned. I've never done that. But you have done it. Every one of us has sinned. That's why Christianity is the best religion in the world, because it starts with the premise that you're all lying. All men are liars. And then from that point on, it gets to be an honest conversation. Okay, well, I guess the truth is we do lie. And the first lie is I never sinned. Of course you sin. That's the fall of man. We do it by nature until we get a new nature. Okay, so I just wanted you to catch this important news update. These are the cultural commentaries. You say, what use is this? Well, these cultural insights go a long way in the dinner conversations you have with people. Remember that Yertle the Turtle was the anti-fascist book by Dr. Seuss, and there are other things that were happening in the news that I think are worth looking at Most interesting to me is the emergence again of Donald Trump, and as he's beginning to put together his campaign, he's putting back a stiffened resolve into the spine of the Republicans. And yes, there was this. We do have to see the Equality Act now is going into the Senate, and the Senate's going to, it's funny how it comes down like one vote, and it's going to be West Virginia. So it's a Democrat that they're looking to. They're looking at all of Middle America, all of the red state Americas, all of you that have influence. You need to be now is the case, now is the time when a single state, a single senator can block devastation from coming. Now, the White House and the State Department and the heads of, and all the people that the left is putting in there, and Biden's not, by the way, everybody's talking these Biden executive order. Let me tell you something. Biden's not doing any executive orders. Between naps, he's signing pieces of paper, and then he's trying to figure out where he is and what's he supposed to have for dinner, and did he take his medication, and where's his shoes, and then someone else is doing all this for him. Because you could just see this is, someone else is doing it. This isn't like him getting up in the morning like Donald Trump. Donald Trump was like a fury. He was a blizzard of activity. With Biden, it's like he's confused in everything he does. So his whole staff is doing this. And the moment he crosses them, watch this. The first moment he blinks and wakes up and says, wait, I took my meds. I don't want to sign this. This isn't a good thing to sign. Did I sign this? Who did you make me sign this? I shouldn't have signed this. The moment that happens, you're going to hear Hunter Biden. Meanwhile, there's some coming up from Hunter Biden. This is why I can't believe Christopher Wray. What's the guy, the head of the FBI? I can't believe this guy. This is as though we don't see this, as though you and I don't see. He gets up there and he's talking about, he's back on the insurrection trail and he's doing this. He's basically doing the deep state dance up there, the Watusi. And we're still wondering, why didn't you talk about the Hunter Biden laptop when you had it during the Trump impeachment scenario? We want to know, why are you still working? Why do you still have a job anyway? Why are you still working there? Because the FBI had the Hunter Biden laptop. Now here's what's going to happen. The moment that Biden doesn't do what Barack Obama wants him to do, done. Remember this. Then suddenly you'll see Kamala Harris back in the cycle again, because she's basically the real person that they wanted in all along. She couldn't get elected in the primaries, so they had to put her in with Biden, and to get Biden in, they had to have what, but I'm not going to talk about that because they're still excavating the ruins of Pompeii, and they'll find out more evidence, but you're never going to hear it, because if they found a laptop, you would never know about it, because they won't tell you anything that's going on. That's just the nature of the situation. But you know what I'm saying. So the confidence in the institutions is at an all-time low. But do not be concerned, because I think this is causing the people of God to actually turn to God. That's why Tucker Carlson, his ratings, and Laura Ingraham and Hannity, they're beating the competition. Now the same people are going to the left to listen to the left, and I'm sure the same people are going to the Fox to listen to Fox. But trust me, there are more people that actually 75 to 85 million that are sitting there going, what the heck happened to America? And that's just the ones that voted for Trump. Don't mistake the fact that you got another 25 million people that are looking like this. This is bad for my job. What are they doing with the border? What are they doing with the caravans coming over? What are they doing with the Keystone Pipeline? What are they doing with the economy? What are they doing with the transgender and with the women's sports? And it's like the misery index is going to get to be absurdly high. And I think in all of this, God is having his way. People say, well, don't you think that Trump's coming back in next week or in 2 weeks? And I got to tell you something. It's only a low-information Christian that is expecting that. And I don't mean to insult anybody's intelligence, but you have to see that the Republican Party has to be cooperating with actually getting Trump back in. And they decided they weren't going to do it. So you see, the corruption is so widespread. It's not only in the Democrats, it's in Republicans. And Trump knows that. And he said he's not starting a third party. He's going to be a wrecking ball within the party. He said we got rhinos. He said we're surrounded by them. What does he mean by that? That they're actually bureaucrats in the swamp, and they're Republicans in name only. And so we're going to have to do. I'm sorry to say this, but this is not going to be like we're going to pray and do a couple of Zoom calls, and boom, revival comes, and America's back to normal, and I'm back to watching TV. Nope, it's not like that. We're going to be fighting for every inch of ground that we got, because the tooth decay is so serious that we actually have to extract some teeth. We got to put a crown on. We have to do some serious stuff. Don't get a root canal, whatever you do. My wife says don't get root canals. Root canals are not good for you. There's plenty of evidence on that. And someone's going to say I'm giving medical opinions, but I'm telling you, my wife is totally against root canals, and I couldn't agree more, because the root canal is not the solution. I don't want to get off on that subject. My wife gets me off on root canals now. But Rush Limbaugh had 7 root canals last year. And when he had those root canals, my wife said to me, oh my God, because the root canal, the tooth, it disconnects the nerve from the tooth, but the decay continues in the bone, in the marrow. So the bone and the rottenness and the decay could still be going on, but the nerve is no longer sending a signal that there's pain, and so it disables the signal. This is like, taking a drug that knocks out the pain, but the pain is meant to be telling you something. So instead of taking out, the whole tooth, it basically is decaying within your jaw, and that produces its own you look it up. This I know this. I'm not getting off the subject, but it's because I was thinking, I'm so grieved over Rush was buried today, and his wife was doing a coverage on it, and then my mind went back, and I remember 7 root canals he did in one day. And I remember, my gosh, because you see, I'm not trying to say that that's what took him out, but I'm saying that there are ways in which you solve a problem, and the way you solve it isn't by printing more money or by creating more rights or creating more laws, because every time they make a right, trust me, something can go wrong. And every time they establish a new freedom, somebody is losing a freedom in order for someone to establish a freedom. And you're seeing this happen all over America. But now, it's interesting. LeBron James is getting rebuked by a foreign soccer player who's saying, I think athletes ought to stick to the athletics and what they're assigned to do, and they should stay out of politics. And he's having a bit of a tete-a-tete with a celebrity soccer player. And so LeBron James is he said, hey, I've done my homework. But the fact of the matter is, now you're going to start to see pushback. Because the pushback's going to come in various ways. But the left, the whole attack and assault on the West that is trying to take it down quickly is going to, at some point, it's going to hit the firewall, which is probably the reason why I call my program that. And so that there's going to be a resistance, and the actual holy resistance instead of the fake resistance. You remember what the left did the day after Trump was elected? A day after, they got like 1 million women with pink hats on their head, and all of them were organizations, leftist organizations that were all, it wasn't the grassroots, it wasn't a populist movement, it was all these leftist organizations. They're all in Washington. Remember talking about blowing up the White House? You see, today there would be an insurrection problem. There'd be the FBI investigating them. They'd be looking at what they're doing because they're talking about this language of blowing things up, but everybody gave them a pass. And so, but they organized right away. What do Christians do? What am I hearing Christians do? I'm not going to vote. So when the left loses, they have 1 million people protesting in Washington. When we get set back, what do? I quit. I'm not going to vote again. My vote doesn't count. Well, your vote doesn't count because you're not making it count. You got to deal with the tooth decay. I'm sorry, God isn't going to make this thing easy for us because he's asking us to grow up. He's asking us to do the hard work of basically lifting the weight that gives us freedom. We have to build muscle mass so that we can have the capacity to handle the freedom that we want to have. This country's gotten soft. The country's gotten weak. The country's got corrupt. The country's got decay. And I'm sorry, the church has been in its own little circle doing what it's doing, and it doesn't work. And now we're having, I think, the wake-up call. And not everybody's awakening because a lot of people are mad at us. They're mad at the Trump people. They're still mad at the Trump people. They're mad at prophets. That's why I'm not going after prophets. I'm defending the prophets. Without the prophets, we don't have eyes to see what's coming. So I want to protect the prophetic. I don't want to be cynical on it. I want to say, look, we need to have eyes. We need to see January 6th. When the enemy's going to set something up, we need to preempt it. We need to have Elijah ability to go into the enemy's camp and hear what they're saying and come back and report. We need to be standing in unity like never before. Anyway, that's my thinking, and that's why I wanted to give you the news segment right now and give it to you before midnight, because this is the way that things are. And the Spirit of God is doing something most unusual. I asked the Lord, I said, is there a verse for this, for where we're at right now? And you want to hear a verse? I'll give you an interesting verse. It'll kind of make you stop and think. Here's the verse. Behold, you despisers, and wonder and perish, for I work a work in your days, a work which you would no wise believe, though a man declare it to you. Beware, therefore, lest that come upon you, which is spoken of by the prophets. And what was he talking about? He was talking about, well, basically that the gospel that he was preaching about Jesus, whose body saw no corruption, was supernaturally raised from the dead, preaching forgiveness of sins. He told the Jews, he said, if you reject this thing, then you're going to fulfill. God's doing a work of resurrection and redemption in your days, and work that you don't even realize. And when the Jews were gone out of the synagogue, the Gentiles sought these words might be said again. Many of the Jews and religious proselytes followed Paul and Barnabas, spoke to them and persuaded them. Persuaded them. But you see what's happened? We are in the battle of public persuasion. They have to be persuaded. 45 million of the 75 or 80 million that voted for Trump are actually the Jews. They are like the Jews and the religious proselytes, meaning these are people that are pre-Christian. We have a persuasion job in America, and we must preach the gospel so that 45 million can be saved. We get those 45 million saved, and the whole cities are going to start to come in to the moment. The problem is, when the Jews see the multitudes, they're going to be filled with envy. You know why? Because the awakening is going to make some people respond and going to make some people popular, and those people that are against Trump and against patriotism and against America's reviving are already coming against it, and it's envy that's driving them. But we will see this whole situation redeemed. It's God is going to redeem the situation. Behold, I'm doing a work which you won't believe. If a person declared it to you, well, I'm telling you, I'm declaring it to you right now. I'm declaring it to you right now. And God's going to raise up new voices. I call forth the new Rush Limbaughs, the new voices. I call forth the multiplied anointing of Donald Trump, the wrecking ball. May DeSantis become a wrecking ball. I pray for Ted Cruz to have new wrecking ball capacities. I pray for the who's the guy that he'll come back to me in a second, from Mississippi anyway. So we're going to pray for God to raise up the multiplied voices, because we're in the battle of public persuasion. And I know we don't want to get involved with public persuasion. We just want to get people born again and saved. Well, that's good, but you're going to have to meet them in the area that they're in right now. Do you know that 96% of people make a decision in America before they're 13? So right now the devil's aiming younger and younger. Transgender doctrine and curriculum in schools is confusing. It's causing kids to question their identity at an earlier age. Why? The enemy wants to go and persuade them while they're young. I say we need to have an evangelism effort that's going to be going even to the point where we're willing to reach the 12 and 13 and 14 and 15-year-olds with the gospel of Jesus. I know this isn't what we're all thinking, but this is the data that I'm listening to on a daily basis. All right, we're standing in agreement. Check that Flashpoint tonight. That was a great Flashpoint episode of Victory Channel with Gene Bailey, Dr. Gene Bailey, who I have a running challenge with, because Gene is constantly he's always attempting to catch me off guard with his questions, but I'm always ready, because I'm praying in advance. What's Gene going to ask me on the program? And so far, I have been ready when Gene has asked me the mystery questions. Anyway, talk to you guys soon, and hope you enjoy the midnight update coming as it ought to be, before midnight. Shalom. If you like this video, make sure you like it here, and also subscribe so that you can get other broadcasts in the future as soon as they come out. And you know what would help me? Make a comment and give me your thoughts on what you'd like to hear about in the future.